So let's get started. Welcome everyone to our second meeting of the RQAP study groups. We are very happy you are here, and I hope it will be a fruitful session. We have a lot of time for discussions, so don't be shy and ask questions, put your scenarios that you might have see challenges in your work, in your experience. We are here just to support, and everybody can benefit from the variety of situations you might be finding yourself. So let me start and share my screen first of all. Where is this thing? Now, if you don't speak, please make sure your microphone is on mute, just to be sure we don't have any kind of background noise or accidental phone ringing and so on, because it's recorded. And we want the recording to be as clean as possible. I typically put my phones on mute and I just ignore them. So hopefully that will work. If you want to ask a question, feel free to interrupt me. Pam may help me if somebody has a raised hand, but since I'm sharing screen, I do not see raised hands easily. It will be hidden in the toolbar I am putting off my side. So either just feel free to unmute and speak, or raise your hand, and Pam, if you can just keep an eye on that and always tell me if somebody is they're putting their hand up on to ask a question, or if there is something in the chat. Thank you very much for it.
Got that open.
So today's topic.
外边还能听见吗？听不见了。
And then we have someone's conversation. So just please put yourself on mute. And we are going to talk about quality management, assessment, and specifically about auditing. Now, first, let's talk a little bit again about exam writing. One, there are new people here, and two, it's always good to point out the important things for the exam writing, for preparation, and so on. So let's talk a little bit about logistics, things good to know, and a couple of helpful hints. The exam time frame starts exactly 1 month from now, so 24th of March up to 26th of April, 2025. So you also see that the annual meeting and quality college is during this time frame. And so if you are attending and if you are planning to go for your RQAP exam, just make sure those dates do not conflict, and that inadvertently you don't create yourself any kind of issues with rescheduling or claiming return for the fees for the annual meeting. The quiz at the real exam has 165 multiple choice questions. The real questions that are counted are just 150, well, just 150. So 15 are there to be tested and see if people have any kind of issues with these questions, or if they are fine. It's a kind of validation questions. But you do not know, we do not know, we have no idea which of these questions are. So take every question seriously, because you cannot think like, okay, this is the question that is being validated, it doesn't matter. Every question matters. You will have about 1 hour, 1 minute, and a half per question, so about 3.5 hours in total. If you are not native English speaker, you may purchase additional time, which is 1 or 2 hours. We would advise to do so. If you don't need them, great. But if you get stuck with a question and you are not sure about the meaning, you need to read it several times, or there is a word that you do not know, and you are trying to find out the meaning just based on the type of question and on the context, then this extra time may be very useful. And it's not that outrageous. I think, Lydia, if you can help me, that's about $50 per hour.
If you are taking the exam in person, then you can have up to 1 hour of additional time. If you are taking the exam via OnView, you may have 2 hours of additional time because we are not able to offer a translation dictionary for candidates taking the exam via OnView. The charge is a flat $50 regardless of what accommodations you are requesting. And this is an accommodation for people who have English as a second language. If you need accommodations because of a disability, those are also on offer, and there is no fee for disability accommodations.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So consider these. Also, there are limitations, like you cannot bring a snack. You cannot bring your own energy drink. So if you need to keep hydrated, which I would seriously recommend, 3.5 hours, that's some time. And as you are focusing and there is some stress around it, we keep losing water usually. Our body works that way. So you need to request that upfront if you are in the exam center. And I don't think energy drinks are allowed, but a bottle of water may be provided. Also, yes, if you need to go to the bathroom, you can, but if you go every 10 minutes and you are there 5 minutes, that would not work. First, you wouldn't have time for the exam, and two, it would look like you might be getting some magical help out there. So just be careful and make sure that the requests you make are those you really need. And then try to make the arrangements upfront to have as comfortable conditions for taking the exam and feel as comfortable as you need. There will always be some stress, that's expected, but you don't need to be suffering, from the urgent need to go to the bathroom or dehydration, because our brain does not think that clearly when we are dehydrated. Practice exam, as you may have noticed, is free of charge. It's a little bit outdated. It's quite outdated. And it feels very easy. So please do not be deceived. This is not as you feel when you go to the exam center or you do it from your computer. The real exam, at least that's what we've been hearing from people saying the real exam felt much more difficult. So if you pass the practice exam easily, 100% ahead of time, do not sleep on laurels and think like, okay, I don't need to prepare, I'm fine. Always prepare diligently. And what you can use, the exam covers FDA 21 Code of Federal Regulations, ICHE 6, and here I stress it's revision 2, not the new revision 3. So still nothing changed. And one reason is that revision 3 has been only endorsed by the EMA, with the full effect, an effective date 26th of June this year, I believe, either June or July. Now I'm not 100% sure, but June or July this year, and it's the only agency. MHRA, for example, announced that they are planning to adopt it together with some major changes in their regulations, meaning 1 year from now, not earlier. And thinking about FDA, it's now a little bit difficult to predict. Thinking about the executive orders and the new administration and some new limitations that are imposed on FDA, like if you issue a new guidance, you need to retire 4 months, and so on. And 21 CFR Part 11, that's the electronic records and electronic signatures. That's the well-known thing. What you have the candidate handbook. So make a good use of them. There are additional examples of questions. There are things that point you out to additional resources, the reading. So go through the handbook. It's organized in the same way as our practice sessions. The topic headlines are the same. And there are also other resources provided by the SQA. We provide from time to time, together with the PDFs of the slides, these handouts, and you will also get maybe some additional resources, and you have some additional tips here. Know the regulations, especially if you are working outside US, then you need to focus on the Code of Federal Regulations and know what's there. Not that paragraph 50 or Article 50 is about IRBs, or 54 about consenting, thing 56 about financial disclosures, or 58. I don't recall that, and you don't need to recall that. There is no question whatsoever saying what exactly would you cite in this situation. So no, don't worry. You are not expected to memorize, but you need to know what the regulations are saying. I would say more the spirit of the regulation. And the same if you are working in the US, learn a little bit about EMA. There are not many questions, but there can be a question or something related, not specifically to CFR, but more to GCP. And GCP guideline and CFR are not exactly identical. Definitely not R2 with the CFR. With R3, there is more alignment, and there are more things that are practically the same. But with R2, there are notable differences. For example, who can be an investigator? In the States, it can be basically non-medical person, but per GCP and also per EMA, it has to be a physician. So small differences like this can change some meaning and can change the way you think about the question. Read the preambles to understand the expected interpretation of regulations, and also the scope and what is out of scope. Answer the questions based on the most conservative approach to the regulations. So be as conservative as possible. And this may be different from what you do at your company. So just think about really totally in line with the regulation with quite limited flexibility. You don't have to do it in real life, but for the exam, it's recommended. And read the tips of your peers. I put the hyperlink here. It will be working still in the handouts. So if you go to this link and scroll down to the very bottom of the landing page, you will find short testimonies, short pieces of advice of people who took the exam before you. And you may find yourself, yes, that would be, this speaks to me, or this does not really resonate at all. Just read it, and you may find some good tips. That's all. Read the questions carefully. If it looks very long or complicated, you may skip it and come back. It's better to have 5 skipped questions and answer all the others than spending time on few and missing 20, obviously. Watch your time, but don't panic if you feel I'm behind. You will have a timer on the computer in the testing center. If you are using your computer, the testing environment will also have a timer. So you will see how much time you still have left. And take a look from time to time. If you are not sure, guess. Usually you can exclude 2 out of the 4 possibilities. Straight away you will see, no, this cannot be the correct answer, that cannot be the correct answer. So you will be left with 2. And you have a 50% chance or probability to succeed. Better to do that if you don't know than to leave it empty, because then you have 0 for sure. Reason. Now, move it down. Okay. Now, recommended reading. You will find it right here at this slide. ICH E6R2. I would still suggest also the general considerations for clinical studies, 8R1. You don't really need to spend too much time on the statistical principles, but having an idea that it exists, or here in E2A, definitions for expedited reporting and standards. So here are things like adverse event, what is unexpected adverse event, and so on. It's also in GCP, but now it's more aligned, R3. But to have an idea, what are the timelines for expedited reporting? Might be something needs 7 calendar days, like every suspected, unexpected, serious adverse event that results in death or was life-threatening at the time of the event. And any follow-up is also 7 days. All the other serious adverse event and SUSAR, potential SUSARs, 15 days. So if it's anything else like prolonged hospitalization and so on and so forth, it's 15 days, calendar days. So know these differences. Have an idea about what is expected in the clinical study reports. But if you need to pay really close attention to something, I would say it's E6R2. That's the guideline that you should really read through and have a good idea what is in there. These are if you have extra time and if you are curious. Part 11, electronic records, electronic signatures from the FDA. Part 50, protection of human subjects. 54, financial disclosure. 56, IRBs. 312, investigation on new drug application. Part 600, biologic products. And here, for example, vaccines. 812, devices and exemptions. Excuse me. And what is very good is the FDA BIMO, especially for sponsors and contract research organizations and clinical investigators and sponsor investigators. That's the inspection manual. So it's available, or it was available. Now many things are not available on the FDA website, but this one should. And it should be free of charge. If you can't find it, I can provide it, send it to Lydia as a resource to upload it, because I have it. And it's free resource. I've seen some companies selling it for $1,000. So please do not pay a penny for that. A cent. It's just taking advantage of people who do not know that it's a free resource. And I consider it totally outrageous. Unfortunately, I'm afraid it's illegal. So let's talk now about the process. This section is about auditing. So site audits, selecting sites to be audited. If you are part of a sponsor company or CRO, you need to have some clear criteria. And since R2 recommends risk-based approach, that would be the approach I would take. Consider sites with high number of participants recruited, sites with high number of deviations or other issues reported, sites that appear to be anyhow problematic. And you should have, as a QA, CQA, good communication with the operations. They should come to you telling you about difficult sites, problematic sites. Also, the site could be just difficult. You know, I met an investigator who, by default, did not talk to monitors. He said, that's something my coordinator does. I have no time for monitors. So he refused to meet any monitor for even a single minute. So sites like that, it might be a good candidate for audit because you also show support to the monitor, and you might be, as an auditor, in a better position to explain that it's the obligation of the investigator. One of his GCP responsibilities, make himself available. And the monitor is the representative of the sponsor, is the main liaison between the site and the sponsor. So it's for the investigator's advantage to meet with the monitor and know what's going on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's not, but most of the time you can achieve some improvements. Introduce yourself to the PI, schedule your audit. I suggest performing a pre-audit meeting that I have very good experience with, especially if you don't know the site, if you've never been there, if the site is new, then having this first contact before you get there to see who these people are and make them understanding your expectations and also understand their expectations or limitations to make the audit itself going as smooth as possible. Align on and resolve any kind of possible hurdles that might be on the way. It will make your audit much easier and much more effective. Prepare. I was asked by someone the other day, a potential client, a CEO of a company, like, what kind of audits do you feel most comfortable with, the kind you don't need to prepare for? And I told him, I need to prepare always. There is no audit, I would say, I don't have to prepare, because every study is different, every site is different. Each time, every company does things a little bit differently. So I can't go unprepared. That I would just feel very uncomfortable. So at least I need to read a protocol and investigate the brochure and inform consent and see the log of study issues, log of serious adverse events, and so on and so forth, status of the site I'm going to, any kind of difficulties that email has been facing. So there's always some preparation. getting access to systems, making sure that I can access the eTMF and eCRF and all that, and that I'm not getting to the site and finding out that I can't open anything. I should also be sure that I would have internet connection there. And some organizations may say, yeah, but you are outside our network, so yes, I need to resolve this during the pre-audit meeting. I'm outside your network, so I need guest access, or I need some other solution, but I need internet access. And there is no discussion about that. Some sites, and I've seen sites like that in Africa, okay, you don't really have internet there. They have devices that create for them their Wi-Fi. So we have to talk about these things upfront. And I was actually having these devices, because they typically had some spare ones, to be able to connect at whatever accommodation I found. So things like that, you may have remote locations where things may be more difficult, or countries that have some, unrest. I'm not saying really you won't be going to war zones. I would not be worried about that. But you might be going to places where things are not exactly smooth. So also knowing something about the culture, potential differences, things that you may normally be doing that may be perceived insulting, how to address those people, how to call them in the first place. And that's not always the same. So especially if you are auditing outside your country, just do your due diligence and do your research. You have your opening meeting, activities, preparation for closing meeting, always reserve time to prepare. You should not be coming with observations and findings that were not discussed during the closing meeting. So that's very important. For that reason, I need the time for preparation. And I would always say I need at least an hour. And I'm preparing every day of the audit, but still I need this extra hour to make sure I did not miss anything, I did not forget anything, and I'm not going to reconsider something. You do not have to put classification. Be free to put unclassified findings, because this sometimes depends on the discussion with your client if you are in a CRO or if you are a consultant. So having these unrated observations, but making sure that all of them are there. Write a report, communicate final findings, review the CAPA for adequacy, CAPA outcomes, it's your responsibility, closing CAPAs, and sometimes there might be a follow-up audit. So you see, audit steps are quite many. You may say like, okay, one audit, but thinking about from the selection up to closing or up to follow-up audit, it's quite a lot. What are the key skills? Communication, especially for findings. It should not be accusatory. It should not be blaming, finger pointing. What you want is to get cooperation, and you want the site to improve. That's your objective. That's why you are there, to help them to get better. So communicating the findings in a way that promote collaboration, that promote joint finding how to improve. You are there to help them. You are there not to say, you failed to meet whatever requirement. That's not your job. Time management, prioritization, common sense, logic, just being human. Error is an error. Okay, that happens. Everybody and anybody can make a mistake. It might be a stupid mistake that happens, but yes, it's a human. We all make mistakes. Haven't you ever made a mistake? I'm pretty sure you do. I did, and many. I tried my best to learn from it. So also trying to understand, you know, you may be provided with a funny explanation of something, so you don't need to accept it. But if you have a genuine way of explaining why things are done differently, doing things differently doesn't mean it's wrong. It's different. If there is nothing breaching regulations, it's fine. It may be different from all other sites I have seen in my life, and it still can be okay. So don't think that something is different equals something is wrong. That's not always true. Could be, but it's to be investigated. Asking the right questions, listening carefully without thinking what I'm going to answer. Listening for what is said and what is not said, you know, in between the words, observing. That tells a lot. How do people interact at a site? Or at a company, you might be auditing a vendor. How do they interact? How do they communicate? Is it a teamwork? Is it smooth? Are there frictions? Whom you are allowed to talk to and who would you love to talk to, but you can't get access to that person. And always please show me. Can you show me how you do this? Can you show me how you do that? Yes, I understand that this is the process you do. Can you just show me these steps? Where is it happening? And what you do? That can give you so much information. Impartiality, objectivity, building a rapport, creating the collaborating atmosphere. I don't mind sharing a story, helping to understand something that I'm trying to make a point of. And taking it, you know, very openly, in a very, very easygoing way. Many times, if you have really good atmosphere, the auditor will tell you their problems. They will tell you, we are struggling with this or that, or we were really fighting with this kind of issue. Now it's a result, but it took such an amount of time. So if you go to that past, most likely you are going to find something. But if they tell you, that also means there is some kind of trust, and they are expecting you to help. And that's exactly what you need. Go deep if something is wrong. It may go a little bit different than what you planned in your audit plan. But if I see a problematic area, I will happily spend extra time, even if it's my own extra time, and go deeper and deeper. One small tip, you know, if I do a site audit, I used to talk to people the whole first full day and let them walk me around and explain how and what they do. It seems like a waste of time. I did not look at any document at all whatsoever. I was just talking to them the full day, to different people, and listening to them. And at the end of the day, I had a very good idea about the way they work, possible difficult points that might need some investigation. And then the following day, I would be going in a very targeted way to things that I already, the pointing parts from the previous day. And it always created a very good and collaborative atmosphere. And we both learned. I learned something about them, and they learned something more about compliance. Report writing, analyzing, and assessing. You might be adding more and more from your practice. What you have as documentation: correspondence, plan, confirmation letter, agenda, pre-audit and in-audit document request, report, thank you letter, certificate, your notes. your personal notes that you might be taking. When I was walking around, I used to make even drawings like, okay, this freezer is located here, and that freezer is located over there, and the medication is here, and say the comparator is over there. And I took notes of the labels of the fridges or freezers that these things were stored at. Calibration dates, put in operations, next maintenance dates, and type, of course, of the equipment and so on. And a couple of times it helped me because the client came back saying, no, the monitor says in the report this or that. And I said, unfortunately, the monitor is not describing it exactly correctly. Here is my drawing. This is what I have seen, and this is how it looks.
Just a note there, for, your audit notes, you need to find what's most appropriate to you. There's nowhere that says, okay, you have to do them electronically, you have to do them by written, but always good to be taking those notes because it's hard sometimes to reenact what you, as you're writing the report. It's better to have a little bit more notes than less notes on there. But usually, I mean, that's not dictated how you're supposed to do it. It's whatever works for you.
Exactly, and the notes are for you. So not by default, you need to send it if you are a consultant or if you audit on behalf of a sponsor or on behalf of a CRO, as a contracted auditor. The notes are yours. These are not to be sent by default. I would do it only exceptionally, and I do not even recall any kind of exception all over the years where I would have to do that. These are my notes for me. They help me to write a report. They help me to prepare other documents. So yeah, I don't remember everything, and I don't want to remember everything. So
definitely. And I think the only time that I've seen that is a for cause, because a lot of times you have to take copies of a lot of stuff for that. So that's usually set up in the audit plan, what may be necessary for your report.
yes, exactly. And the notes are really priceless for me because it happened many times that client came back and I was already in the middle of another audit. And it was so difficult to recall what happened at that audit. It was just because I was focusing on something else, I got like a mental block to access those old memories. So those notes helped me to unlock and recall and give the answer. But without the notes, I would say I can't remember. That would be my only answer. So the notes are really for you, and they should help you. So who else can be GCP audited? All kinds of vendors, IRBs, and this is in the United States only. So just for you to understand, you do not audit IRBs, and IRBs are not seen as vendors anywhere outside the US. It's something very specific, and I'm not going to discuss my big question marks about the IRB as a vendor. That's not the forum for that. Contractors, DSMBs, documentation, processes, protocols, CSR development, ETMF, and you may have qualification, requalification, in process, pure documentation audits, and for modality, remote, hybrid, on-site, you just name it. Nowadays, we have such a variety and different types of way of working that were not really that possible before. Let's now go to the practice exam and discussion questions. Let me put the poll in. Let me just push it. Pause. And you will have 5 minutes. There should be a timer. Actually, I will see that right on the computer. 5 minutes to answer all those questions. So these are from the practice exam. And this kind of timing also gives the feeling of I'm sitting at an exam. So do your best. Read carefully the question, read carefully the answers. Do not skip any. What is not supposed to be done, and so on, which is not maybe easily missed, and so on. So I'm going to launch it. I'm not going to read them because for many people it can feel disturbing. Read it for yourself. And you should be able to scroll down and up as you need. So take your time, 5 minutes. And I would like to ask all of you to do your best, because I see how many people are doing it, how many people are working on it, and how many are thinking like, okay, if I don't, it's not visible. It is. And it's your best chance to practice, so use it. That's why you are here. That's why we are here. We have 2 minutes left. I see that we have 23 participants and only 8 people are making their attempt. So use your chance, take it. It's anonymous. I don't see the answers associated with the person. So if your answer is not correct, it's not correct, but try. And we will discuss the correct answers. Use the opportunity. 1 more minute to go. And I encourage the remaining people who haven't started answering, do so. Fifteen seconds left. Okay. So 18 out of 20, so 90% participated. Thank you very much. Let me share the results. And for the first question, maybe Pam, would you take the first question and see what are the answers?
Yes. So the first question concerning an auditor notices that the IP that requires refrigeration is standing on the floor in a corridor. What should the auditor do? We had 17 of the answers noting identify as an audit finding, notify the investigator immediately and escalate as appropriate. Which we do have. Do we have the slide with the reference on it for that?
Yeah, I will show it later. I can't
Okay.
show.
Oh, the same time. Okay. Yeah. So the slides have the correct answer, which is, as 17 people had noted, and the reference for that. So if you're not quite sure why this is the correct answer, you might want to go and you could look at the ICH guideline and or FDA Code of Federal Regulations. We had one that noted, check if IP has been altered, request a new certificate of analysis, and instruct the site to refrigerate it. That probably would be what the monitor is going to do. So think about as an auditor, if you're there, what you're going to do with that, because there will be other things that need other activities that will happen usually after you are have your audit report. So thinking about may not be what happens at the site, but you as the auditor, what would you do? You probably would not request a new certificate of analysis.
By the way, how are you going to check if it has been altered? You may check if the packaging has been tampered with, but you cannot do any kind of chemical analysis to see if something has changed in the composition. And for a new certificate of analysis, it means it has to be shipped back and analyzed. So you cannot request new certificate of analysis, keep it there without shipping, and at the same time instruct the site to refrigerate it. The certificate of analysis cannot be produced if the IP is at the fridge at the site. It's simply not possible.
And most of the time, the pharmacy manual or IP manual will have exact instructions on what to do. So you may assist the site to say, let's look this up and see what needs to be done as far as quarantine. Is there a temperature excursion form that needs to be sent in? That type of thing. So you may assist them to find what they need to do, but you yourself cannot really do that. So do you want me to keep going there, Camilla?
Please do.
Okay. So number 2, when planning a database system audit, what area should the auditor consider as having the highest risk of highest level of potential risk? And we had quite a few different answers here. So 11 of computer system validation, 5 answers for data transfers, and 2 for data management personnel training. So once again, thinking as an auditor as the highest level of potential risk, and as 11 of you noted, is the computer system validation. If the validation is not adequate or incorrect or was even never done, yes, we have experienced that, then all the other items will be for naught, to tell you the truth. So looking at that computer system validation, obviously having the system validated correctly in the beginning is what you're going to be auditing. There may be other areas to look into as part of that validation, but definitely the highest risk of highest level of potential risk.
By the way, as part of validation, I would expect the data transfers to be included. So
they're kind of included in there. So, yeah. Oh, okay.
If you don't mind, keep going.
Nope, that's fine. I was just saying there were some messages coming up. Oh, you can say click on see poll responses to see what the responses are. Number 3, what information is most important to discuss with the auditees at the completion of the audit? And all 18 of you noted issues that impact the study data and participants' safety. Think about why we do audits. Part of GCP, not only in ICH and also the FDA, is study data integrity and patient safety. So those are the 2 of the 3 big things as part of GCPs. So, excuse me. Thank you. Everybody answered that question. And if you look at some of the other answers, you might be able to kick out 2 of them sometimes that are not plausible or do not really answer the question at all. So that's another avenue that you can look at, is say that, you know, is this something that really fits? And it may not do. It may not be fitting to the question. And that allows you to only have maybe 2 answers to choose from. So we'll go on. Oh boy, we got all kinds of stuff here. During a facility tour of this is number 4, the electronic randomization system server room, it is noticed that electric cables are tangled and frayed. Upon closer inspection, the cables look to have been chewed through. What documents should be requested regarding the server room? So we have a little bit of everything here. The highest answer, facility maintenance and pest control records. We also have a few answers for business continuity plans and SOPs, disaster recovery plan and training records, and also unlimited power supply maintenance and testing records. So the facility maintenance and pest control records is correct, that this is something that you want to look at to see what is their maintenance. What's their SOPs for maintenance? Are they doing it on a regular basis? Is there documentation of those records? And then also the pest control records, they look like they were chewed through. So do they have a pest problem? Do they have any procedures to be able to handle that, to not have pests coming in from the outside and chewing up cables? This is kind of an older question, only because sometimes you don't see the big data rooms anymore. But if this is something that you were looking at, definitely you want to make sure that the room is not a mess, which I have to admit I have seen before. It's a closet with wires and everything all over the place. So that would be the most important thing to be looking at, and what you would want. You may have business continuity plans of, yes, this is what they would do for continuity, but that doesn't really pertain to this. Are they doing their maintenance?
Yeah, it's not only the SOPs, they may have wonderful SOPs, but do they follow them? So is there really a record that it was performed by whom and when? So that
Correct.
would be the important part.
And an auditor is performing an audit of a niche data analysis service, provider that utilizes state-of-the-art software. The company only has one employee. What key elements should be present? And once again, we get back to thinking about validation of the system, including adequate controls, security measures, backup, and data protection. And thinking about the other question that was on system, computer system validation, if you skipped that question and said, I'm not sure what the answer may be, and then you come across this question that gives you a really nice overview of what validation is and adequate controls and security measures, you may be able to, oh, that triggers that brain cell to maybe go back and go, oh, computer validation is exactly what I was looking for. So that's another thing as you're going through. If you don't know it immediately, you may be able to skip it and come back to it. And another question might kind of generate that spark to say, oh yeah, that's what I meant to be saying. And I admit, even when I took the test, I was writing down, and you can take notes. You can't take the notes in or out with you, but they do provide paper and a pencil. And you may think, oh yeah, that's right. That's what I was thinking of, but I couldn't think of what the term was. So that's another way that you can do that too.
Thank you. So let me stop sharing the poll and close it. And as Pam was saying, you will have the handouts where these questions are and where you always have the reference, what to look at the bottom of the slide in this red rectangle. So you will see, refer to ICHE 6R2 section 463, FDA 21 CFR 312 621-2A. And you have it all. So that will give you, before we jump to few minutes for Q&A, let me just wish you good luck and stop sharing, because I do not see anyone and I feel a little bit isolated that way. So now I can see you. Take your opportunity. Do you have any questions related to those questions that you were answering, or to any other question that you may be facing with your work? Anything that comes, that is sitting in your mind, occupying you?
Yeah, hello, this is Silvia. I just have a question out of curiosity. You mentioned that you do drawings sometimes of the labels and so on. Do you ever take pictures?
In many places, you are not allowed to take pictures. So that's the reason why I can show you what I have for that. I have a electronic to make visible.
Yes.
It's an electronic notepad. I can handwrite, I can make drawings, I can convert it into electronic version. It's called Remarkable. Just put it in the chat if you are interested for your audits. That's been my great companion. The battery is just endless. Needs very little charging. It's immortal, and you can use templates. You can make your own. So I was taking notes, especially in distant places when I was touring the site, and like the research centers in Africa, you have analytical labs, storage area, pharmacy, clinical side, then data management, QA, and all that. It's like a CRO and site mixed together. So that was very useful. And then I always had my drawings and my notes to help me to remember. If you do remote audit, you don't really need that, because yes, I can ask blueprints and all these things. But if I'm touring a site, and I do, I want to see a blueprint of the facility. But if I go somewhere, I'm taking this it's very convenient. It's much more convenient than to have a computer with you. So it feels like you have just a kind of paper notebook and you use it basically the same way, but it's electronic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pam, you also needed to jump early, so I hope you are not missing your other meeting. Thank you very much for support today.
This one's more important.
Thank you. Thank you. It's very
Okay,
kind of
hopefully see everybody next week.
See you.
Thank
Take care.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I'm going
Bye-bye.
to stay a few more minutes. If anyone has a question, if there are no questions, then I will just say goodbye and see you next week.
Okay, bye. Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.